What is up, sexy people? It is Dave. It's Duncan. Back from Metal Epidemic for another.
I don't know. There's an awkward pause where I feel like I should do something like, yeah, it's me.
Back for another album review. For this release, for this review, even we're checking out the new release from UK post-black metal trio Still. Band's new
There's
album.
only 3 people in this band.
There's only 3 people in this band.
Ugh.
The band's new album, A Theft, will be released on November 15th via Floodlit Recordings.
A theft of joy from this world is what it should have been called. The album sucks the fucking light out of room. Then shags it.
An ominous drone beckons you in the empty, cold darkness. A faint beacon of light glimmers through the harsh fog. A distress siren screams out, pained and tormented as instruments of distress bellow into life. The path you came from is now a tangled web of thorns, with no way to turn back. You become ensnared within the bleak, suffocating dissonance of Still. The Hull black metalers.
Do you think like the PR people were writing this going like that? Can we have, I don't know, like a wee bit of light in this? And the guys were like, no light.
No,
Thorns.
not at all. Absolutely none. So this is the sophomore album from Still, which will be released through Floodlit Recordings, founded by Pine guitarist and studio engineer Joe Clayton.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is his label, Floodlit Recordings. Across a lean 35-minute runtime, the Hull-based trio concentrate all their ferocity, intensity and emotional rot into their most direct and sharply honed set of songs to date. A lesson in mounting eye-watering tension punctuated with a through line of discordance and anxiety-ridden freefall. A true amalgam of extreme and post-metal subgenres still brew together savage contemporary black metal, sludgy atmospheric tones, and a shifting high-velocity impact akin to power violence across non-linear avant structures laced with experimental subtleties and blossoming textured nuance. After the wide acclaim of their abstract full-length debut, Still have reduced to a trio, with the guitarist Fraser Briggs and drummer Jack Green sharing vocal duties. Following their debut and multiple tours across the UK, Still have worked on these sonic maelstroms across a 2-year period, but were blindsided by personal trauma in the midst of their artistic journey, the sudden loss of Fraser Briggs' father. A true exercise in catharsis, Still build on the insidious success of their debut, with towers of palpable grief rooted in the injustice of having life taken out of one's hands. This hugely affecting and sudden change has turned and refocused Still to create a more blunt and direct outpouring. A Theft is a record that sounds haunted, with every fibre of hurt, confusion, anger, betrayal and sorrow clawing at the seams of these 8 songs. The subtle promise of deliverance that crept throughout the debut album is expelled. A Theft sweeps aside any notion of resolution and observes with welling sadness that nothing lasts forever. Most of all, hope or family. A new era has begun for Still to upend their trusted method of contrasting harsh energy and ambient disquiet with a redoubling of asymmetric dissonance. Still have reunited with their producer, engineer and mentor Joe Clayton at Manchester's No Studio, a small basement dwelling and vintage gear haven lurking under the imposing shadow of Manchester's Strangeways prison. Described by under a prison, fuck yes. Described by the trio as their unofficial 4th band member, Clayton has become a trusted observer across the making of this record. As well as
Can we just stress here, Dave likes prison movies. Dave didn't just like get visibly erect because someone mentioned prisons.
Sorry, I should have clarified there.
Yeah, it was like, oh, prison. Oh. They did.
Love prison movies. As well as taking on the release on his label, carefully capturing Still's immense outpouring of turmoil, allowing him a space of both inner reflection and undeterred volume. Clayton has gracefully documented the Hull trio at their rawest and most vulnerable, emptying them of every ounce of sweat and grasp of breath akin to the physicality of their live performance, all that claustrophobic heat and shallow breath in turn comes piercing at the seams of this record. So, when this came in for review, the name of the band kind of rung a bell. I was like, okay, that sounds familiar. And then when I read the press release, I saw the name of the debut album, which is like, it's like two like punctuation marks. They're like
Right.
like squiggly kind of brackety things. I think they're braces, possibly. I don't know. But when I saw that, I was like, all right, that's coming back to me for some reason. And then I managed to track it back to, I think the band messaged me on Twitter when we posted our like album of the year poll that people could vote on back in 2021. I think they messaged and said, can you add our album to the list? I think that might have been how I remember it.
Cool.
But I couldn't remember anything about the album other than that. So I jumped online onto the socials to have a little look at the band, onto their Instagram. And as soon as I read the one-liner summary from their bio on Instagram, I knew I had to steal this album for Duncan and I to review.
Did it say, go and listen to this, Dave?
Pretty much. It said in their bio was Robert Eggers, A24 Blackmail.
Yeah, and this is how you pitched this to me.
Yes, it was.
You were like, listen, Duncan, I'm just saying we could do 3 albums. And I was like, well, let's maybe do 2. And you were like, Robert Eggers Blackmail. And I was like, there's a space in my diary, Dave, this week for a little bit of that.
For those of you who don't know, Duncan also has a horror podcast, the Podcast Under the Stairs. And I don't know if I know anyone else that's that obsessed with both Robert Eggers and A24 as you.
Yeah, well, we should go one step further. Like, you are not a Robert Eggers fan, which blows my mind. Like, this is like you are. I was gonna say you're like a quasi black metal fan. You aren't really. Like, of his 3 movies, you didn't like The Witch. You didn't like.
No, hold on.
Here we go. We're throwing it out right now. Sorry, still, you'll have to wait for
hold
your
on a second to discuss this.
Dave.
I didn't dislike.
Dave.
I didn't dislike The Witch. That wasn't the issue.
You fucking sat with your arms crossed in the cinema like this all the way through it, face like fizz. And you
That's my normal face. That's my Reston Buchanan face.
Reston Buchanan face.
That's just my face. No, I didn't dislike The Witch. I just didn't think it. I didn't buy a ticket for that hype train, Duncan, is all I'm saying. I think it maybe got
the best horror movie that year by
maybe
a
got
country
overhyped,
fucking
I
mile.
think.
By a country mile, it's the best horror movie that year.
Didn't like The Lighthouse, that's for sure.
Which is fucking wrong.
You can quote me on that. The Northman I liked, and it's probably the one
Northman's
that
fucking great, but the Northman is made for you. It's like, let's do, like, what would happen if Conan the Barbarian had Vikings in it?
Yeah.
Let's make it for Dave.
Absolutely. However, I do really like A24. Like, we're both big fans of A24. I think they have way more great movies than they do bad movies.
They punch well above a studio that size's weight, and they have an aura about them. And what's interesting about it is, like, looking at the album artwork for A Theft, I could imagine that artwork being an A24 artwork, you know, like, and even the name A Theft sounds like an A24 movie. You know, it's like, it's vague enough to make you think, what's it about, and intriguing enough at the same time to go, I need to go and fucking see that. I need to go and listen to this. It's like that. It's very smart.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but what is your favourite A24 movie?
Oh, Dave, like, you might
I
as
know
well
this is like a side note here, but
maybe Hereditary. I think Hereditary is at like a different level. It almost works on a different. It's almost unfair to compare anything to Hereditary because that works on a different level all the way through it. But if I had to pick one which most summed up our experience as reviewers of music, I would say Green Room sits comfortably in that top 3. Green Room is
amazing.
Chef's kiss, Dave. Chef's kiss. Although I did see, let's just throw these things while we're talking about A24. I'd see The Heretic over the weekend there, and it's fucking incredible.
We need to talk about Heretic after
It
this.
is so fucking good. And it just reminded me of why I think A24 just do movies better than anyone else.
It might be their best movie this year. I don't know.
Maybe actually, maybe it's so fucking good, right?
Civil War was good though. Civil War was good. I might be.
I think it's better than Civil War. I think it is effortlessly good because it doesn't have big budget. It doesn't have anything. It has 3 people in a fucking room, and it is engaging from start to finish. And that is 3 people in a room engaging from start to finish. Wait 1 second, Duncan. Did you just create a segue back to still? Yes, I fucking did, Dave.
Nice.
Yes, I did. A theft of 10 minutes to talk about anything except music, but never back.
So let's talk about this album. I did go back and listen to the debut, which was just under an hour long.
Right, long, quite a bit longer then.
Yeah, quite a hefty listen, Duncan. Quite a hefty listen.
You think that's because it's a debut, and we talk about this a lot, where a band like gets signed and they're like,
yes,
we need to give them everything. We need to do absolutely everything on this album because we may not get a second one.
Possibly. It did feel like they were just firing everything into this. Actually, a lot more post-metal on that album than I was expecting. I was kind of thinking it would be a more kind of black metal affair, but there's surprisingly a lot of like slow kind of churning kind of post-metal grooves on that album. Also parts where the album gets a lot cleaner and adds in a lot more space and kind of atmosphere and stuff, so it's quite different. A Theft is not a 180 per se, but it's like a definite switch. Firstly in length, it's 35 minutes, 8 songs, so 1 less song than the debut, but about 20 minutes shorter than the debut, so definitely tightened up some of the kind of run times of these tracks, but that's nothing. That's not the biggest kind of holy fuck on this album. Could this album have started in a more Robert Eggers way? Is my question to you. Like, could it? Could it really? I don't think it could, to be honest. I really don't think it could.
The only way it could have is if Willem Dafoe said, "Tell me you like me lobster." Yeah, I mean, that's the only way. The only way.
There's a kind of droning cello that opens the album, and it sounds like something from a horror movie. It's
unsettling as fuck.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I just had this feeling of like apprehension as soon as it happened. I was like, oh fuck, right, okay. And what I would say is get used to that feeling, because this album has that feeling of unease the whole way,
all the way through it. It's dread. Album. It's dread inducing all the way through it.
I'd say this album is more stripped back in a way, to kind of deliver a leaner, more aggressive version of Still. They've pretty much removed all of that like additional ambience or kind of like downtime that the debut had, and just turned the intensity dial all the way up. It's heavier on the black metal side of things, although there still are like little shades of like post metal on occasion when the pace drops, and then there's like that kind of post black kind of tinge to it as well in the guitar work. But for the most part, this album is kind of, in a word, ruthless is how I would kind of describe this. The style and tone the band have gone for leaves you feeling kind of mentally and emotionally exhausted.
It's very Knoll.
I was just going to say that. I was literally just going to say that.
That Knoll album, like we talked about last time, I was just like, there's no light left in the world.
Yep.
And like it's like just you feel it just being drawn out of you.
Yep.
What the irony is, on A Theft there is a track called Light, which when I was reading down the songs, I was like, oh, this will be the quiet one. It's followed by Dark, which is like maybe lighter than Light.
I know. Yeah, I got the same feeling when I was listening to this album. I was like, this gave me that kind of like Knoll, like Ulcerate or like Kralis. It's just like that. It captures a similar feeling, that kind of like menacing, bleak,
hopeless,
claustrophobic.
You know what I mean? don't mean hopeless in a way which you won't like it. I just mean like when you're listening to it, you just feel it encompasses you in such a way that it blocks out fucking everything.
Yep.
Like all your emotions, all your thoughts, all your feelings just kind of disappear, and you just exist in the music. It's bizarre.
Yeah, that like the kind of heavy kind of dissonance of the album, and the way the riffs just kind of like tangle together. Like my first listen to the album, I was like, holy shit. Like it kind of took me a minute to kind of compose myself and like pull my thoughts together on it. It's not an album that like I could like start talking about after listening to it once. Like I needed to give this album like multiple listens to kind of wrap my head around all the kind of layers of it. But at the same time as this is quite a like demanding listen, there's something quite captivating about the delivery and execution of this album. It's kind of like in a kind of fucked up like art house horror type way. Like you feel like you can't take your eyes off it for a second or you'll miss something, or your ears in this case. But and it's not this isn't like a riff focused album. It's like, you know, in a kind of typical metal album type way. It's not building into breakdowns or halftime grooves. Like there ain't no cowbell on this album. It's like musically it feels much more about delivering feeling and emotion. And as I've said, that feeling is like grief and loss and pain, and you can sense it in every strand of this album, from the kind of despair that soaks the music to the kind of harrowing vocal style of the album. And like vocally, this is very, very well expressed. Like I feel like the vocals are kind of used as an extra instrument, almost like this additional layer of menace. And the fact that the vocals on this are done by two members of the band who weren't the vocalists before, like they're not used to being vocalists. That's kind of nuts, because not only do they have an interesting mix of styles between them, where like the two tones are different. The one is more in the black metal realm than the other. The other tone's like almost kind of like reminds me of like a kind of noise rock territory, but it's like kind of bleaker. It's not quite as charred sounding as the black metal vocal, but actually that tone sounds just as like anguished as the black metal vocal. But what really impressed me was the way they both managed to capture the kind of the theme of this release. And like I could understand how Fraser could kind of deliver that level of pain vocally, because he's lived through it. Jack, on the other hand, is essentially singing about someone else's loss. But it didn't feel that way. Like I think they both equally achieved that feeling of like kind of heartache in their vocal recording. So I thought that was really, really well done. As I said, it might take you a couple of listens to kind of fully acclimatize to this, because it doesn't really let up at all. Like there's no gaps in this. It's fairly constant, aside from that kind of like cello coming in and out, which is just bleak as fuck. I think it's Oscillate, which is like the album's kind of mid.
Is right in the mid mark.
Kind of breather kind of track of the album, and the cello comes in for about 30 seconds, like on its own, and then you're just hit with this like wave of dissonance and blast beats that is so ugly and like foreboding. It's just like there's only been a couple albums that have made me feel this way, like this year. One was probably As Spoken by Knoll. The other one was Shame by Meth.
God, yeah.
That gave me that kind of feeling as well. And this album delivers that same amount of kind of unease. And honestly, like my first listen to this, I was like, well, maybe they should have like added a bit of that space, or like, you know, a bit kind of those kind of lighter sections to balance this album out. But you know, it's very full on. But the more I came back to the album on those re-listens, I realised adding in something cleaner or less discordant would only kind of dilute the point of this album.
Because they made a conscious effort to reduce the run time of the album as well. So there's a conscious effort to it's to concentrate that sound, like box it in for maximum effect. And I kind of feel like you live by the sword or die by the sword on that. Either it becomes an album where you're like that, I get all the way through it, or you get to, and there are albums when we've reviewed them before where we're like that. It's you have to cut it in half. You can't get through it in one listen because it's just it's too intense to the point where you're like that. Nah, I can't. Or you need to be like having the worst fucking day. Like, your wife needs to have left you. Your house needs to be burned down. Like someone needs to have put out like a hit on your family, and you went to your bank and it's been emptied. You know what I mean? Like that on that level, you need to be having that sort of day to get through certain albums. So it's risky because most of the time, unless I just want to listen to the ugliest thing ever, and there are people there that will not listen to anything happy at all. I am not one of them, but it is a risk because you might alienate a huge swath of people that might listen to your album in favour of that nasty fucking little box that you're in. So.
In a weird way, I'm just thinking about this just now. It's kind of similar to The Witch in a way, right? Because
The Witch is a happy movie.
The score is not happy on The Witch.
The Witch is terrifying.
There's not one ounce of harmony or melody in that score at all. And this album isn't like minimalistic like that, but it evokes that kind of same tense kind of feeling as that movie does. And like I've listened to this. I think 7 times now. This album,
holy shit.
And that feeling never fades. Like on the listens you have after the first one, that feeling never kind of dissipated at all. Even though it's like 35 minutes, I kind of lose track of time when I'm listening to it. It's fucking. It's like The Lighthouse. It's like The Lighthouse. It's like fucking.
You need to revisit The Lighthouse, man.
How long have we been on this rock? Like that's what.
But that's the point. That's the fucking point.
5 weeks. But the time you get to the album closer, it kind of sums up how you feel. Like Unresolved is the final track, and this album, it doesn't end with like a feeling of like contentment. Like you feel like
the album closer is called Unresolved. It's deliberately named in such a way to put you in a, much like an A24 movie, it doesn't end in a position where you're like that. So it's all wrapped up. Book 'em, Dano. It ends the way you're like, is this a happy ending?
I know.
Like, should I feel good about myself right now? Are we
that's
all okay? Are you okay?
I kind of feel like we've just been through therapy, like, but it's not the end of the recovery. Like you've still got quite a way to go.
It feels like we get to it's like that. To be continued. Yeah. You're like, to be continued.
It's kind of amazing on the production front. I think Joe Clayton's done what a job. Like I think he's given this album the right amount of kind of grime, but without it sounding like worn or kind of lo-fi. It still has a clarity to it. The mix is really well balanced. Like as much as there's like lots of like angular kind of like jarring guitars and stuff, and really like scorched vocals. Everything, like the ride cymbal cuts through. Like everything is very audible. The bass is still kind of like peeking through, like certain like the frequencies of the guitars, and those like eerie kind of guitar leads really like push the ominous tone of this album. But it never like overpowers anything else either. It's such a fucking cool production. It almost feels like contradictory to talk about something like this so positively, because it's such a horrible sounding album, but in a really impressive way. I thought this was brilliant. Not an album that will leave you singing choruses or anything like that, but it will leave its mark on you in an entirely different way. And I thought it was fucking amazing. I really, really liked this. What about yourself? What did you make of this?
I'm literally going to add like a couple of things on top of this, but you've covered so much of what I wanted to say. Yeah, this is an experience album.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is one of these ones that you lock in when you hit play, especially on subsequent listens. Like you are making a conscious choice to be in that headspace. On the first listen, you can be forgiven for not knowing what that headspace is, and you work your way through it, and you get to the end of it. And anytime I hit play on this again, it's because I want to vicariously have that experience again. Mm-hmm. I want to be back in that headspace. I don't listen to it 7 times because I'm on a happy week, Dave. But I did listen to it the full 3, which is my standard for listening on this one. And it exists in a genre that I don't often go to. But it worked so well for me. I think the highlights for me, and you've already mentioned them, are I think the production is so tactile. It kind of claws at you. It's like you are enveloped when you listen to it. I think it aids what they're doing, but it just has a real sense of purpose, like from start to finish. It knows what it's trying to achieve. It never really deviates from the plan, which is the best thing about it. It just continually... Just when you think you've heard maybe the most... It's like an album that is the... Like, remember when Artax, the horse, gets stuck in the fucking... the bog, and there's like you have to think of happy thoughts, but the horse keeps fucking sinking. It's like, no, think of happy thoughts, Artax. And a whole generation of 80s kids cry. Like over that set, it haunted us forever. Like imagine like Artax was listening to a theft, right? Like that's literally the horse had headphones on, a theft was playing, it was just like that. It was like, think of happy thoughts, Artax, and it was like, oh no, we're on the dark now, and Oscillate's coming up, oh what we're doing here, I'm in the quicksand. It's like that. It's just, but it's kind of fucking brilliant at the same time. It has levels. To the uneducated and uninitiated, you might skip those levels, but this album has levels. Unresolved, and I say this a lot, might be one of my favourite closing tracks to an album this year because it does exactly what it says on the tin. You get to the end and you're like that, okay, so... Do I need to go on the internet to work this out now? Is there like an English professor that's like, in 1742, there was a... Like, it kind of leaves you uneasy. Yeah. And we've mentioned it before, the fact that they themselves have mentioned Robert Eggers in a way kind of makes me feel that there's a very conscious choice to leave the listener uneasy and unsure at the end. And I think that track does that maybe better. Most bands will not leave a question mark at the end of an album. Most bands want to resolve. Music by its nature has that idea of the resolution at the end of the album, the point that makes everyone go, right? And they've not done that. They've done a, so, and I kind of love it. It's so heavy. It's so dark. And it exists in that kind of quasi-black metal bubble that I kind of love. Where bands add it as a flavour and not the core. It's not the core sound here, it's the element that just makes it more interesting. It's the change in hairstyle, it's the interesting cravat. You know, it's the something where you're like that, I'll remember this album because of... And that's what they've got on here. They should be fucking immensely proud of what they pulled in together. I think... I only have 20 albums at the end of the year. And that's a hard thing to do when I'm looking at albums and genres and all the rest, because I do like representation. And the only black metal album, quasi-black metal album to make my top 10 was Knoll. I like this for different reasons about the same as the Knoll album. I'm not saying there can only be one in the 20, but there might only be one in the 20, and I'm going to have to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of thinking. which means I'm going to have to listen to both his albums a lot more, so I better be having bad days from now to Christmas. This is fucking great. It's really, really, really good. Once again, a shining example of how great the British music scene is at the moment for bands that are not, like, on the front cover of Kerrang. Yeah, these guys are fucking awesome. Love it. Yep. Love it.
Okay, final thing. Scores for A Theft by Still. I thought I was finished for this year, Duncan. I thought...
Dude, we still have at least about another 4 or 5 we could give it. So don't say that. Never say that.
I thought I had all the albums that I had to worry about at the end of the year.
Just when I thought I was out, Dave, they pulled me back in.
And then along comes Still and say, "Fuck you, Dave. Here's one more album." Yeah, this is kind of fucking amazing. Albums that make me feel something are just, that's what I love. Like, I mean, there's great albums out there that are fucking technical and like well written and well performed, and then there's albums that make you feel shit, and this is an album that makes you feel shit. Yeah, I loved it. The tone, the aesthetic, the production, everything about it I thought was absolutely spot on.
The audience has been edged within an inch of their life right now. Just give us the number.
2.5. No, 5 out of 5, Duncan. 5 out of 5.
There's an explosion happening on the screen that's not Dave Seaman.
First 5 of November.
7 days. 1 week. It's been 1 week.
Oh, fuck me. I can't take any more this year. I can't take any more.
It used to be really, I remember having a conversation with like that. No, 5s are reserved, they're special. You're wearing out more 5s this year than the last 3 years.
No. What's happening, man?
You've come to the Duncan side where you're like that. If it sounds fucking great, you wouldn't change anything. 5.
No, that's
so,
true.
Dave, ask me right now.
What would you score this album, Duncan?
Dave, you know, if it sounds great and you wouldn't change a thing, fucking 5.
Fucking hell. Still A Theft. Out on November 15th on Floodlit Recordings. Check this out. I mean, have a listen. There's singles out there. Have a listen to singles, but I would highly recommend listening to the full thing. Like, to get the experience, listen to the full album. It's just, yeah.
If you're checking this out on YouTube, what's your top 3 A24 movies? Just for shits and giggles.
I would have to agree with you on Green Room.
Green Room's amazing.
Hereditary is another one that just made me fucking have like a
panic attack. Like, it's a panic attack film from start to finish.
Yeah, I had like a full body shiver watching that movie.
Your third one's a hard one,
kind of love Uncut Gems. I kind of love that movie.
Uncut Gems. I know. I was going to say it's underrated. It's not really. I think it was in Oscar contention, which makes it not underrated. It's really good.
Oh, but then there's like
Whiplash. It's Whiplash, not A24.
No, we figured out that was Blumhouse.
Oh, it's Blumhouse, isn't it? It's fucking Blumhouse.
But then there's like Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is amazing.
There's too many great ones.
Under the Skin.
Under the fucking Skin might be my third, by the way. That movie right there. Oh, cha bastard.
Midsummer.
It's
good as well. Tusk. Just kidding.
I will kill you and bury you.
There was the two kind of indie ones. Well, they're all kind of indie ones, but like it was mid-90s and.
Oh yeah, man, mid-90s is amazing.
Was it 8th Grade? The other one. There was two kind of similar.
8th Grade is really good as well. Yeah.
Oh, there's so many good ones. Yeah, Hereditary.
Let's just go Oscars, Dave. Everything, everywhere, all.
Oh, fuck off.
Once. See, this is where you just get shitty.
No.
I don't like that movie.
Oh.
Was
that A24?
Name it.
Was Enemy A24?
Enemy is not A24.
Jake Gyllenhaal, no.
No, I don't think it's it. It's fucking amazing though. But
Should be
it's not
A24.
It should be like if ever there was a like that's the like it feels like an A24 movie. It's now a description, which kind of is a great signal.
Yeah, Hereditary, Green Room, Uncut Gems. That's my 3.
That's a solid top 3, dude.
I don't know which order, but that's the 3.
That's the 3 in your let us hear your top 3.
Yeah, I'm interested to know the band's top 3.
Still, yeah,
What's
it's
your
just
favourite
like
A24?
what is there's 3 Robert it's 2 of Robert Eggers movies because technically Northman isn't A23. A24, sorry. It's
is it not A24? No,
no,
it
wasn't A24.
Right.
So they can only use 2. So they'll use the 2 and then they'll throw something obscure in, which I kind of like. So
yeah, good shit. That is the review.
5 stars for me, Dave.
Check it out. Got to listen to it. Comes out on the 15th of November. Links below. Check all that shit out. Have a look at the sexy merch and all that on Bandcamp. That is a review. Thank you for checking out. Much appreciated. We'll be back. In fact, this review is about as long as the album. So
it is longer than the album. So if you can listen to us chat about it, you listen to it as well.
Listen to the album. That's a review. Thank you for listening. We're back with another review very soon. Take care.
Bye, everyone.